March 19th, 2026, 3 p.m., Haifa, Israel. 5 consecutive waves of ballistic missiles light up the sky. Air raid sirens scream across the entire country. And then, a massive explosion at Israel's most important oil refinery. Black smoke rising over Haifa Bay. 15 fire trucks racing to the scene. Iran just hit the facility that supplies 50% of Israel's fuel. But here's what nobody is telling you. This was not just any missile. Iran debuted a brand new weapon system in this attack, one that Israel's air defenses have never faced before. And military analysts say it changes everything about how this war ends. What is that weapon system? Stay with me till the very end. Because when you understand what Iran just deployed, you will understand why this war just entered its most dangerous phase yet. To understand why the Haifa refinery attack matters so much, you need to understand the chain of events that led to March 19th. Because this strike did not come out of nowhere. It was the direct and deliberate response to something that happened just 24 hours earlier. On March 18th, Israel crossed a line it had never crossed before. The war in the Middle East entered its 21st day and continued to escalate with each passing hour. Tensions soared after Israel's strike on the South Pars gas field, which triggered a sharp retaliation from Iran. Tehran had already been targeting oil and gas facilities across Gulf nations, and now it expanded its offensive by striking a key Israeli refinery. Israel hit South Pars, the world's largest natural gas field, Iran's most valuable energy asset, the economic lifeline of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. And Iran's response was immediate, calculated, and personal. Israel says the Haifa oil refinery was struck in an Iranian missile attack, as Tehran continued to retaliate across the region for strikes on its energy infrastructure. Eye for an eye, energy facility for energy facility. Iran's message to Israel was clear. You hit our gas field, we hit your refinery. You hurt our economy, we hurt yours. And we will keep escalating until you stop. But here's what makes day 20 of this war truly different from everything that came before. The escalation was not just about targets. It was about weapons. Iran used Wave 65 of its quadri-ballistic missiles, deployed for the first time through the Nasrallah system, marking a notable upgrade in its offensive capability. Wave 65. Iran has now launched 65 separate missile waves at Israel in 20 days. That is more than 3 full missile barrages every single day, for 3 consecutive weeks. No country in modern history has sustained this tempo of ballistic missile attacks, and each wave is being refined, adjusted, and upgraded based on what Iran learns from the previous one. Let's walk through exactly what happened on the afternoon of March 19th, because the details matter. Iran fired 3 back-to-back waves of ballistic missile attacks towards central and northern Israel on Thursday afternoon. Before that, Israel's northern region received 3 sets of rocket sirens within the span of 1 hour before 6 a.m., following a series of barrages from Iran and Hezbollah in Lebanon. 6 waves in one day, from before dawn to mid-afternoon. Israel's air defense batteries were firing continuously, burning through interceptor missiles at a rate that raises serious questions about how long the stockpiles can hold. An Iranian missile hit the Bazan oil refinery complex in Haifa Bay on Thursday afternoon, damaging parts of the facility and prompting checks for possible hazardous material exposure as sirens sounded across much of Israel. Plumes of smoke were visible rising from the complex after the impact. Preliminary findings suggested the missile carried a cluster warhead, creating several impact locations across the Haifa area. Power disruptions were reported in parts of the city, apparently tied to damage to infrastructure. A cluster warhead. This is critical. A standard ballistic missile hits one point. A cluster warhead splits into dozens, sometimes hundreds, of smaller bomblets, each capable of causing damage across a wide area. One missile, multiple explosions, multiple fires, multiple impact sites. Haifa Bay was dealing with all of them simultaneously. Emergency responders were deployed across affected areas. Fire and rescue services said 15 firefighting teams were sent to the Bazan site. Teams were sweeping the area and working to put out a fire at the site, adding that crews had secured the location and were monitoring conditions to assess a possible hazardous materials incident. 15 fire teams at one refinery, a facility filled with thousands of tons of crude oil, refined petroleum products, and industrial chemicals. The nightmare scenario, a fire at a petrochemical complex that could spread uncontrollably, was very nearly realized on March 19th. The IRGC confirmed it fired toward Haifa and Ashdod. Iranian state television said the strike targeted an energy facility in Haifa in response to Israel's attack a day earlier on Iranian gas infrastructure connected to the South Pars field. Iran was not hiding its intentions. This was a declared, announced, openly stated act of retaliation, which means it was not the last one. Now let's talk about what exactly Iran just hit, because the Bazan refinery is not just any industrial facility. The plant produces half of Israel's domestic fuel supplies, half of everything Israel burns. In its cars, its tanks, its military aircraft, its power stations, its hospitals, half of it comes from one facility in Haifa Bay. This is not a symbolic target. This is the beating heart of Israel's energy economy. The Haifa refinery is the country's largest center for fuel and chemical production and supplies nearly 50 to 60% of Israel's domestic fuel needs. Any disruption here can severely impact Israel's energy supply, industrial output, and military logistics. Military logistics. That is the key phrase. Israel's tanks need diesel. Its fighter jets need aviation fuel. Its naval vessels need bunker fuel. All of it, or a huge portion of it, flows through Bazan. Hit Bazan hard enough, and you do not just inconvenience Israeli civilians. You degrade Israel's ability to fight. At least 21 people, all civilians, have been killed in Israel as a result of hundreds of Iranian ballistic missile attacks since the start of the war on February 28th. 21 civilians killed in 3 weeks of relentless bombardment. Iranian missiles have struck residential buildings in Tel Aviv, a couple in their 70s killed by shrapnel and Ramat gun, Palestinian women killed near Hebron by cluster munitions, a foreign worker killed in Israel's agricultural heartland. The human cost of this war is climbing every single day. On Wednesday night, a foreign worker in his 20s was killed in Israel's Sharon region after sustaining a head wound from missile shrapnel during a wave of Iranian missiles. Earlier, 3 Palestinian women were killed in an Iranian missile attack near Hebron. Palestinian media reported that 13 additional people were wounded, one seriously. 3 Palestinian women killed by Iranian missiles. In the West Bank, Iran is targeting Israel, but its missiles are killing Palestinians too, the same people Iran claims to be fighting on behalf of. That is the brutal, indiscriminate reality of ballistic missile warfare. Now we get to the most important part of this story, the part that military analysts are watching with deep alarm. Iran used Wave 65 of its Qadr ballistic missiles, deployed for the first time through the Nasrallah system, marking a notable upgrade in its offensive capability. The Nasrallah system, named after Hezbollah's slain leader Hassan Nasrallah. This is Iran's latest missile guidance and targeting upgrade, and March 19th was its combat debut. Iran did not just launch another missile barrage, it field-tested a new weapon system against a live target. According to reports, this was Iran's largest attack on Israel to date. The assault targeted Haifa, Israel's third-largest city, in the Ashdod region in the south. Iran used Wave 65 of its Qadr ballistic missiles, deployed for the first time through the Nasrallah system. Israel's air defense systems failed to fully intercept the barrage, which led to a massive fire at the refinery. Failed to fully intercept. That is the sentence that keeps Israeli defense planners awake at night. For 20 days, Israel's Arrow, Iron Dome, and David's Sling systems have been intercepting the majority of incoming missiles. But the majority is not all of them. And with each new wave, Iran is learning which trajectories, which altitudes, which timing patterns give it the best chance of getting through. A U.S. F-35 fighter jet had to make an emergency landing at a Middle East base after it was apparently hit by Iranian fire. A spokesperson for U.S. Central Command confirmed the jet was flying a combat mission over Iran when it was forced to make an emergency landing. The jet landed safely and the incident was under investigation. An American F-35, the most advanced fighter jet on Earth, hit by Iranian fire over Iranian airspace. This aircraft costs over $100 million and is supposed to be nearly invisible to radar. The fact that Iran was able to engage it suggests Iran's air defense and weapons capabilities are significantly more sophisticated than the pre-war assessment suggested. Netanyahu told reporters, Israel acted alone against the Asaluya gas compound. President Trump asked us to hold off on future attacks, and we're holding off. Trump asked Israel to hold off, and Israel is complying, which for now. But that restraint is being tested every hour as Iranian missiles continue to rain down on Israeli cities. How long can Netanyahu tell his people to absorb these attacks without retaliating against Iran's remaining infrastructure? The Haifa refinery attack did not happen in isolation. On the same day, March 19th, the entire region was simultaneously on fire. In addition to its attacks on Iran, the Israeli military launched an intensified aerial and ground assault on Lebanon since early March, killing more than 1,000 people. 1,000 people killed in Lebanon. While the world's attention is focused on Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, Israel has simultaneously opened a major military campaign in Lebanon. Hezbollah is fighting back from the north, while Iran fires from the east. Israel is fighting a two-front war. Iran fired 3 back-to-back waves of ballistic missiles. Before that, Israel's northern region received 3 sets of rocket sirens from Lebanon within 1 hour before 6 a.m. Emergency services did not report any injuries or major property damage from these early morning launches. Rockets from Lebanon before dawn, ballistic missiles from Iran in the afternoon. This is Israel's daily reality on day 20. No end in sight. A senior Emirati official urged the immediate cessation of Iranian aggression against Gulf states. The United Arab Emirates authorities said they had dismantled a terrorist network funded and operated by Lebanon's Hezbollah and Iran. The UAE, one of the most stable and wealthy nations in the Arab world, is now actively dismantling Iranian-backed terrorist cells on its own soil. This war has reached inside the borders of America's Gulf allies in ways that will reshape regional security for decades. More than 70,000 Americans have returned to the United States from the Middle East since the Iran conflict began on February 28th. 70,000 Americans evacuated from the Middle East in 3 weeks. Business people, teachers, aid workers, diplomats, ordinary Americans who built lives in the Gulf, all fleeing a war that now touches every corner of the region. And the United Nations finally spoke. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged the U.S. and Israel to cease attacks, saying it's time to end the war. The head of the United Nations, publicly calling on America and Israel to stop. Not Iran alone, America and Israel. The entire international community is watching this escalation with growing horror, and the calls for a ceasefire are getting louder with every passing. So here is what I promised you at the very beginning. The brand new weapon system Iran debuted on March 19th, the one that military analysts say changes everything about this war. It is called the Nasrallah system, named after Hezbollah's assassinated leader. It is Iran's latest missile guidance upgrade, designed specifically to defeat Israel's air defense networks. And here is why it matters so much. For 20 days, Israel's air defenses have been intercepting most of Iran's missiles. But most is not all. And with every wave, or every single one of those 65 waves, Iran is learning, adapting, refining. The Nasrallah system represents Iran's conclusion from 20 days of combat data. Here is the trajectory that gets through. Here is the timing that overwhelms the interceptors. Here is the warhead type, cluster munitions, that creates damage even when the main missile body is destroyed. Iran did not just hit a refinery on March 19th. It demonstrated that its missiles are getting smarter, faster, more precise, harder to stop. And the refinery that supplies half of Israel's fuel is still standing today. Barely. The question is, what happens when Iran fires Wave 100? Wave 150? When does Israel run out of interceptors? When does the refinery not survive the next hit? These are the questions that keep defense analysts awake right now. And right now, nobody has a comfortable answer. Tell me in the comments. Do you think Israel's air defenses can hold? Or is Iran slowly finding the gaps? Share this video with someone who needs to understand that this war is not winding down. It is winding up. See you in the next one.